Hello, my dear friends. I hope you're doing well. Today, I'd like to discuss about a very simple mental tool and important one, of course. If you're procrastinating something or delaying important tasks or you have self-doubt about yourself, this video is for you. Let's get started. The 5 seconds rule from Dr. Mel Robbins is a very simple and important mental tool that helps you to overcome self-doubt, hesitation, and especially procrastination. When you feel an instinct to act on a goal or doing something important, or you hear your inner wisdom, a gut sense of what you should do, but you don't feel like doing it, you use this simple rule 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then immediately move or act on something. So it's really simple and crucial. You just need to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and bam! This simple rule interrupts the brain's tendency to overcastination or self-doubt or retreat it into fear of failure, anxiety, aggressiveness, and then trigger actions. So instead of just those terrible feelings, it just triggers actions. So in contrast, a very common myth among the people, you don't need to feel motivated or confident to act on something. You just move and then confidence follows you. At first, it might be ridiculous or just underestimate this simple mental tool, and I will provide you a scientific explanation behind it, and you will understand why this rule actually works. The first part is neuroscientific explanation that involves with prefrontal cortex and limbic system. So let me show you an actual image from the brain. Okay, the 5 second rule is rooted in cognitive neuroscience. And in neuroscience, we have to consider two important parts for this rule: prefrontal cortex and limbic system, especially amygdala. This is the limbic system, and this small part is amygdala. So prefrontal cortex is the brain's executive control center, and it's responsible for judgment, intentional tasks, focus, attention, and so many other important tasks. And in contrast, we have amygdala from limbic system. As you see here, it's very small part, but it's very crucial for delaying our tasks. So amygdala is responsible or governs the emotional responses like fear, like anxiety, like aggressiveness, and it's often triggering automatic responses, especially habitual responses. So it's actually escaping from important conditions like avoiding a hard conversation, avoiding talking with important person, and etc. So when we are delaying important tasks or we are procrastinating, the amygdala is hijacking our behavior through emotional impulses. So emotions actually overcome the true behaviors and reactions. So when we are counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we are inserting a cognitive disruption, and this simple mental tool requires working memory and focused attention that finally leads to activate dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And this is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. As you see here, it's on the top of the prefrontal cortex, or we can say in the dorsal part of that. So when it's activated, it disrupts the fear-based loop from limbic system, especially amygdala, and shifts control from that to the goal-directed prefrontal cortex or dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And you finally regain top-down control over your behavior. So again, one more time, we count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it activates prefrontal cortex, and then suppression of amygdala from limbic system, and finally it leads to the behavior. So we are counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you're activating the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and suppression of the amygdala, and finally the behavior will change. So the next one is procrastination, self-doubt loops. This sentence is from Dr. Mel Robbins. You are not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastinating. There is a difference. This is the exact sentence from Dr. Mel Robbins. Procrastination is not laziness. Again, a wrong common myth among the people. It's emotion regulation problem. So we are avoiding this comfort, and instead we are staying in our comfort zone and doing something that doesn't need consume energy and resources from our brain, like staying in the bed, like scrolling the Instagram. These are the things that just distracting us from the important tasks and important decisions. So it's not laziness, it's emotion regulation problem. So you have to pay attention to your emotion. This is the exact part that we need to focus. And the brain defaults to short-term relief, like staying in the bed, like scrolling the Instagram, over the long-term goals like productivity, like growth, like learning, and etc. And when we are procrastinating, we are reinforce a neural pathway in our brain. Consider this example. Alarm is a trigger, and craving is comfort, and response is snoozing, and the reward is a temporary relief. So I already mentioned that the default mode of the brain is to prioritizing the comfort, the short-term reliefs, rather than the long-term goals. So you are worrying that, oh my goodness, my brain is working like this, what should I do? This is the rule of changing. We are using different rules, we have different techniques of neuroscience especially, and maybe cognitive psychology or psychology in order to bypass this kind of circuits. So when we are cutting down, we are inserting a deliberate pause between the trigger and response. It's very crucial. If you haven't heard anything about the atomic habits or how to create or forming habits, please see another video about the habits. And this is exactly the interruption for habits, because there is a trigger and finally there's a response. We are inserting this pause by cutting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in order to disrupt this habit loop, and then we are actually changing the habit, because after trigger we cut it down and we change the behavior. This is something to bypass for procrastination, and it's very consistent with neuroplasticity. As much as you repeat these useful behaviors, the neural pathways would be strengthened and you will be more active for doing important tasks. A very common myth among the people is we need motivation to act. We need motivation to do something important. We need motivation to exercise. We need motivation to write. We need motivation to study. But it's not correct most of the time. Based on neuroscience, most of the time actions precede motivation. So I'm talking about the motor cortex. So the motor cortex, as it appears from its name, is for movement, can be activated by intention, even a weak intention followed by a movement. So when you move, your brain releases dopamine and norepinephrine that increases alertness, focus, and attention. So as you see here, the action precedes motivation. So when you are cutting down, you prime the motor cortex and it signals to the brain, okay, we are in the action mode, and it fortunately triggers a positive feedback loop, which action, confidence, and that brings more confidence and more actions. So it's amazing. And last one is mind control, negative self-talk. These thoughts arise from default mode network or DMN and is active during self-wandering or self-referential thinking. And chronic default mode network, I mean in extreme condition, is linked to rumination, depression, and even anxiety. So when we are cutting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is attentionally demanding, we are forcing our brain out of the default mode network and inners to central executive network, which is for goal-directed thinking, which is very similar to mindfulness or cognitive restructuring, especially in cognitive behavioral therapy. So when negative thoughts come in your mind, you're cutting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to activate central executive network rather than default mode network, and then you are inserting empowering thoughts. That's it. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it would be useful for you. See you later.
With